See this happy looking man? I believe he holds the key to fixing all the problems at Oracle Red Bull Racing before the team is destroyed. People can stop blaming drivers or pointing fingers at the team principal or advisor. The team's issues are way more complex than picking the right driver. Let's explore what I've conjured up in my big bald head, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on the matter too. Also, I have an infected eye, just so you know. I'm Wimbo. Here's 3 seconds to leave a like. So, the glaring issue is pretty clear. Red Bull Racing keeps having a car that is unstable and impossible to drive for anyone other than their star driver Max Verstappen. In the last 7 years, 4 drivers have struggled with the same issues. Those drivers are race winners and podium scorers and seem to be a lot better in other teams in different cars. Still, people always point at the driver who isn't performing, and for a long time, they saw it as a skill issue. Pierre Gasly had a list of demands, and he wasn't really in a position to demand anything in 2019. And then Alex Albon had a decent rest of that season until the 2020 car gave him nightmares. His confidence was shot at the end of the season, and Checo Perez became available. So he took that seat in 2021. He turned out to be pretty successful for the 2022 and the 2023 seasons, where he finished 3rd and 2nd in the standings. There were calls to replace him from people who wanted someone who could make things hard on Max Verstappen. That had very little to do with Checo's performance. They just didn't like it that Verstappen won that much. In 2024, Perez dropped off even more than in the previous seasons, and he was let go after the end of that season. Red Bull didn't promote Yuki Tsunoda, but promoted the New Zealander Liam Lawson instead. They felt that with his driving style and attitude, he'd be a good match for Verstappen and the RB21 he was going to drive. Now, after 2 races without any points, after 3 Q1 eliminations, Red Bull management is having a meeting to see if they should replace him. I've thought about this a lot, and I see the discussions on social media too. I hear what Max Verstappen has to say about it, and I feel the biggest factor in all the troubles they had in the last 7 years is overlooked. And it's not the drivers. What all those bad seasons for the second driver had in common is that the Red Bull design team built an unstable, very hard to drive car. The RB16 in 2020 was awful, and they've admitted that a few years later. The 2022 and the 2023 cars were a lot better, and those were the years that Red Bull won the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship. In 2024, problems that Verstappen and Perez had already pointed out at the end of 2023 played a big part. And if it wasn't for the big lead that Max Verstappen already had, he wouldn't have won the title. Then the statements came out about how Max Verstappen and his ability to drive around problems had hidden a lot of things they should have changed, and how they had one of the best winters ever while working on the RB21. But seeing Max Verstappen's face in interviews, it doesn't seem to be all that great. He says he's happy in life and he's relaxed about it all. He's not thinking about leaving Red Bull, and he doesn't think about the championship at the moment, but it's clear that things aren't right. You can especially see that with young Liam Lawson, who started so confident by saying things like, "I'm not here to make friends, I'm here to win," to then be the worst Red Bull driver ever. And I can't really blame him. It's happening on tracks he's never driven before and in the wet without hardly any proper testing. As I said earlier, we should stop blaming the drivers or the people who hire the drivers. The key problem is the car. It was in 2020, and it was with the RB20, and now with the RB21. From what I keep hearing, the car has a very small operating window, which Verstappen can find, but other drivers can't, and it's unstable and awful to drive. Mind you, I didn't hear that about the RB16B, the car that Max Verstappen won his first championship with, or the RB18, in which Verstappen and Perez won the Drivers' and Constructors in 2022. The 2023 car did have issues towards the end, and that was ignored because Verstappen was still winning. So it's clear that the problem comes from the technical side. Someone is building shitboxes. The person responsible for that is Pierre Wache. Now, you could say,
hey, it's not nice to point fingers, and everyone's trying very hard.
well, Helmut Marko is trying very hard to get a good junior in that seat instead of hiring an outsider. Christian Horner is trying very hard to give the drivers confidence. We know how long he held on to Checo and how he granted him another contract, so that worry was off the Mexican's mind. The drivers in that second seat are all jumping with joy to start, and then they find out. Max Verstappen has all the data available and has advice for all his teammates, but it seems impossible to get them to perform because the cars are just too hard to drive. So I feel the blame is on the stubborn Frenchman. There, I said it. The pattern we're seeing is that if Pierre Wache has the full responsibility of creating a car, the car is bad. In 2019, Adrian Newey was disheartened by the Renault power units being slow and unreliable, and to keep him at Red Bull, they gave him the Valkyrie project and later the RB17 project. So he became Chief Technical Officer and took a more overseeing role, and Pierre Wache became the Technical Director. The first car he designed was the RB16, and that's the car Albon struggled with. Adrian Newey was back on board again for the RB16B, and Verstappen won the title. This went great for a few years until a few decisions were made that Adrian Newey didn't like. I've explained this in a previous video, which I'll leave up as an end screen. Adrian Newey has started his new job at Aston Martin, and this car, the RB21, is completely Wache's creation with his team, of course. They are trying to fix the things that went wrong last season, and what I'm hearing from Max Verstappen is that the car feels better, but overall it's just too slow compared to the competition. This is not what Liam Lawson is feeling at the moment, who struggles like mad in the RB21. Max Verstappen stood up for Lawson by stating that the New Zealander would be faster in the Racing Bulls car, because it's so much easier to drive. When he was asked if he'd be quicker in that package, he said, I don't know. So yeah, this is quite telling, and even though nobody talks about him, this looks very bad on Pierre Wache. They are basically saying that the design team of the B team did a better job. And you know what? There lies the solution, possibly. My solution is to get the guy who created the V-Carb 2 into Red Bull to fix the damn car. And the person I'm talking about is Jody Eggington. This guy has been in F1 since 1996, worked for Tyrrell and Lotus, and recently got a promotion to Red Bull Advanced Technologies. I don't know what he's gonna do there, but I think he's better off at Red Bull. I don't want Pierre Wache sacked. He can become an assistant or something. It's just clear that the pattern of Wache making difficult cars that only Max Verstappen can handle has to be broken. And Red Bull needs to look ahead. It's not just prizes they'll miss out on. The consequences of poor performances could well be that Max Verstappen's performance clause gets activated, and he'll walk away. At this moment, I don't even think he'll go to another team. I think he'll take a year out to reassess. Now imagine what Red Bull would look like without Max Verstappen. One really old advisor, one troubled ambitious team principal, a mid-car, and two drivers who can't handle the car. They'll be in the midfield fighting Williams and Aston Martin. That can all be prevented by getting a new brilliant talent in. Instead of swapping drivers, let's give Jody Eggington a go. Do you agree? Subscribe. Take care now.